Welcome to Farming for Health, where Farmer Lee Jones and I talk with leaders in food, farming, and health and wellness to spread knowledge and inspire a plant-forward future, starting now. Welcome to the Farming for Health podcast. I'm Dr. Amy Sapola, and today I'm joined by Callie Cavanaugh. She is an author, chef, and designer of Eating In by Design. Welcome, Callie. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Amy. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to finally connect with you.
Yes, I'm so excited to talk with you, and I'd love to just start off by learning more about your journey of how you got into the culinary world and what led you to culinary school.
Yeah, that journey started when I was very young. When I was like 5, I kind of got into the kitchen, and I loved. My mom was a pretty big cook, and so I think that's kind of what drew me there. And then I just kind of started going there for fun. And I would make up these random concoctions, and all of a sudden, like I really wanted an audience. So I brought my friends and my family to kind of watch me do these like quasi cooking shows. This was before the Food Network, so it wasn't as professional. And so it was always, it's always been like a love of mine. And I actually, when I graduated high school, I went to college to study business, and it was about a year and a half in, and I was like pulling out my hair, like this is not where I'm supposed to be. And so I kind of made this, transition to culinary school. And ever since then, it's just, all been about food, which is great. So then I trained and studied in Italy, which was amazing. And that kind of totally transformed my relationship with food. Before it was like really all about flavor. And then I saw in Italy how it was like just like really part of their culture. It was about like respecting that time as a place to like gather with other people and be social, and also like a time to slow down. And then I had my own health problems, and that kind of mainly gut problems. And so that brought me into like more nutrition and health through food. So there's been quite a long journey with it. But yes, it started in my own home kitchen around 5.
Yeah, can you tell me more about your own health journey and kind of how food helps support that as well?
Yeah, most definitely that. I'm pretty athletic. Like I like to be active in sports, and so that started at a young age as well. When I was in high school, I found like my appetite was raging. Like I was just always
Mm-hmm.
eating, and that kind of escalated, especially when I was in college. And I was finding like I would eat a whole meal, and then I would finish everyone else's plate. If I was eating with other people, and then I would still be hungry. And then all of a sudden I was like very fatigued, and my joints were achy. And so long story short is we found that I had a tapeworm. And so I probably had it for many years, unfortunately.
Oh, wow.
And I thought that I had it. Unfortunately, like my Western doctors were not really, they kind of poo-pooed me and were like, I think you're okay. Like just get more rest. And none of it was really working. So thankfully an Eastern functional medicine doctor helped me kind of spot this tapeworm. And then I just took a ton of herbs and for about a week, kind of had like flu-like symptoms to kind of pass this little guy.
Oh, my
And
word.
so yeah, and so unfortunately, like after that, there's relief, but then my gut was kind of messed up. The
Mm-hmm.
flora, the good bacteria was kind of stripped, and so it took me a while to like number one understand even how to eat to feel good, because I had been just trying to maintain, showing up for work, right?
Yeah.
um, but so long story short is I worked with many nutritionists and functional medicine doctors to really number one like pinpoint my food sensitivities, my food intolerances, like kind of understanding the difference between those things, and then starting a couple elimination diets to really get back on track. And it took about like 2 years for me to I started on this a FODMAP diet,
Mm-hmm.
and it got less and less restrictive over the couple of years. But I remember I started it and I thought it was going to be 2 weeks, which I thought, okay, I can do 2 weeks, right?
Yep.
It's like 2 years later, and I'm still on it, and grateful to be on it, right? Because when I got off of it, like I never felt good. So actually is very much the impetus of my book, Eating In by Design, and this kind of method that I've brought to life, the Eat In method, to really, I didn't understand my body prior to this experience. Like I didn't understand what foods really worked for me or didn't work for me. And I was just like always brain fog, right? Always feeling fatigue. And I had no idea that food, my relationship to food had such an impact on that. So
Mm-hmm.
really those 2 years, at the beginning it was such a struggle, but it was one of those are like really, really important years for me to really understand the value of food, in every single moment of my life.
Yes. And so for people who don't know about FODMAPs, low FODMAPs are essentially fermentable oligosaccharides, essentially foods that don't necessarily get fermented by the gut bacteria. So it helps to control a lot of digestive symptoms and can be one like kind of therapeutic intervention to help with kind of gut dysbiosis or kind of balancing out who's there. Um, and
Thank
so
you. I can never describe that, so thank you.
yeah, that's okay. And I think, it can be really beneficial but it also can be hard to get off of too. And
Yes.
so I think it's interesting though to think about the relationship of food as you start to clear up some of those intolerances and sensitivities, and you can actually start to notice how your body's reacting to foods. Can you talk more with me about what that experience was like and how you even began that process?
Totally. Yeah. So I had like a food journal, and this was like a two, it was very detailed. This Excel spreadsheet. I think I actually still have it. It was like the time of day, my emotional state, my physical state, right? What I was
Hmm.
eating, like specifically. And so this was really where I started to realize, like when I ate out, I actually didn't understand what I was eating, right? Like I didn't know the oils or the specific things that were actually in my food. And so I didn't know how that was, what were the things that were contributing to these symptoms that I was having. So I actually, those, at least those first 2 weeks, just really, really was strictly eating at home for that time. So I understood every single thing that I was eating. And so I would log, every single thing, snacks, breakfast, lunch, dinner, etc., and my symptoms. And even after the first 2 weeks was not a FODMAP diet. It was actually just eliminating, I think it was like gluten and dairy and some other grains or something. And there was one day within that period that I didn't have bloating. And I said to my nutritionist, I'm like, hey, we're getting somewhere. And she's like, Callie, you should never have bloating. Like one day, yes, we should celebrate. We should celebrate the one day of ease, but like that one day is how you should be every day. So then we switched to the FODMAP. And once again, it was just, what am I eating? All these specific things. And then I worked with her, the nutritionist, to really look at like, okay, today there was a little bit of bloating, right? Because then I
Hmm.
got to this point where I was actually feeling good most days, and the bloating was irregular, right? Rather than the vice versa. So then we would look at, I learned that, some foods I was symptomatic right away, and other foods I was symptomatic like 3 days later. So it
Hmm.
got kind of like this puzzle or a mystery that we were solving, right? Or unsolving. And so she was very helpful because I was still pretty like in a brain fog. I realized that I'm very sensitive to gluten, and so for me, eating gluten, I have like a 3 day, post symptomatic kind of brain fog, which is really, yeah, it's really challenging. Like I was drinking so much caffeine to even try to be myself, right? But when I
Hmm.
just eliminated the gluten, like I didn't need the caffeine. So it's really cool to see, how I was trying to manipulate, right, these symptoms,
Yeah.
and yet like just eliminating this one thing, I could actually just be at ease, right? Um, yeah, and then like dairy, for example, I realized that I'm symptomatic pretty much right away after I eat that, and it's actually more like cramping in my stomach.
Hmm.
So I really saw that there's different foods, like I interact with them in different ways, and then like different time scales, right? And then, now if I am going out to a restaurant, like I can kind of prepare myself. I know what I'm getting myself into, I guess I would say.
Yeah, I've heard Andrea Nakayama talk about like kind of you're kind of driving down your lane, and then once you kind of understand what you're sensitive to or intolerant of, every now and then you may choose to go out of your lane, but you can make
Exactly.
that like conscious choice, and most of the time
Yeah.
stay in the lane.
Yeah, most of the time, exactly.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's so important though to be able to kind of clear up like the muddy waters, right? And so that you can understand what your symptoms are coming from or caused by. Because a lot of times when you're in the thick of it, and like you said, you have the brain fog, it's really difficult to know what's causing what. And it all kind of seems too complicated until you start kind of peeling away the layers.
Yeah, I actually was thinking about it recently, like those 2 years, and maybe it was even more, to be fully honest. Like
Mm-hmm.
I was in such a fear with food, I guess you would say,
Mm-hmm.
right? Just trying to figure out, like, am I gonna be okay?
Right.
And can I show up as myself today? And it feels really amazing. I feel so grateful to finally be on the other side where like I feel empowered with food every day, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I know, okay, if I'm choosing to eat this, like you said, I might feel something, and yet like I am at least in control of that. I know what's gonna happen.
Yes.
Whereas before it was kind of this crapshoot and it was really challenging. So yeah, long story short is I feel grateful to be on the other side, and that's part of why like I'm sharing this book and this knowledge with people, because I didn't even realize you know how much I was struggling. And I think many of us are in that same place, right? We just
Mm-hmm.
don't even know.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. A message from our sponsor. The Chef's Garden is a family owned regenerative farm that grows the most flavorful and nutritious vegetables, herbs, and microgreens for culinary professionals and home cooks. For over 30 years, the Chef's Garden has supplied some of the world's finest chefs and restaurants. Now, through Farmer Jones Farm, the same delicious ingredients are available to home cooks in the United States to use and enjoy, delivered directly to their homes. The Chef's Garden mission is to grow exceptional vegetables, care for each other and the land, and to inspire a vegetable forward future. For more information, visit chefs-garden.com. So, one of the things you say is that you've come to see that distrust in food has led to confusion of what to do and like what not to eat, like what to eat, what not to eat. And too little time and too much information have created overwhelm and frustration. Many
Mm.
simply don't know where to start on their journey to well being. And I love that. How do you even start to guide people who are feeling this way?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it so there's really what I teach is intuitive eating. So it's
Mm-hmm.
really about stop listening to the noise, because probably a new fad diet that started today that we don't even know about, right?
Right, exactly.
There's so
Every
many.
day.
So you could literally, if you're just following the trends, like you could just be eating a new diet every day, right? So rather than looking on the exterior to those types of diets, or even to commercials, advertisements, the latest superfood, all those things, like there's definitely valuable information and this like sense of discovery and curiosity that I, really try to inspire with people. But it's really first starting to get to know yourself. So similar to the journey that I went on, it's really about starting with like, what are your intolerances? Where is your gut health? And then really curating like a set of foods that you feel comfortable with. And for some people, that's all foods, and that's amazing. And so now we get to play and like, in this moment, what are you actually craving? And if you're, you know, if you don't have the best gut health and you're eating a lot of processed foods, those, when we say cravings, for a lot of people, that's more processed food. And yet, like, if you actually get to a place like, I guess, I would say where I am today, like, I just crave like leafy greens, right? Like my dad and I just went on this large um trip to Nepal, and we were eating like rice every single day. And all I wanted when I got home was a huge salad. For like a whole week, I was like, I can only eat vegetables. um, so really it's about getting to know yourself, and also really about seasonal eating because
Mm-hmm.
and this is somewhat drawn from like Ayurveda,
Right.
which really states, if we're in like cold weather, uh, you're probably more craving like a soup or something warm, right? Rather than like a
Mm-hmm.
cold salad. So I think a lot of people think that healthy eating is just greens and it can't taste good. It tastes like bird food or something. But really what I'm empowering people to do is like tune into what are you actually craving? And if you're not thinking about the latest diet trend or whatever, then whatever you put on your plate, if it's whole, nutritious, seasonal food, that's going to nourish you more than anything else. Um, and I also think there's something about cooking your own food. There's a sense of accomplishment. There's this um, there's this real gratitude that comes with it. That if you also add that to your plate, that nourishment, you're nourishing yourself. You're taking that time. It's an act of self care. And whether that's 5 minutes or 10 minutes putting something together, or if it's 30 minutes, like that sense of gratitude is there no matter what, and
I
that's
love
empowering.
that. And I think acknowledging that it's an act of self care, because oftentimes it feels like just another to do. And so it's like it's almost just a mindset shift of instead of just another to do or something to check off the list, if you can get mindful and present in that moment, the energy that you're putting into that food is the energy that you are consuming.
Totally. And that's actually one of the main things that we talk about in like the very first module of this Eden method is also even choosing like dining ware that you love or using
Yes.
cooking equipment that you love, because like you said, it's all about a mindset shift. It's about the energetics of what you're doing, right? And so if you're finally to that place where you feel good and have energy and you're thriving, like those subtle shifts of energy like really make a difference. And
Mm-hmm.
other people can feel that if you're cooking for your family and loved ones, you're nourishing them on a very deep level as well.
And I think one of the things I hear often, and I'm sure you hear as well, is people say, just tell me what to eat. Like, I just want to know what to eat. And like you were saying, it's not necessarily that simple because it changes daily based on the needs of your body, which can change by the week, especially for females, like with the menstrual cycle, it can change based on that. Your body's needs change seasonally. Like you said with Ayurveda, like
Yeah,
having more cooked foods in the winter actually helps the digestibility, right? And so we know like
exactly.
raw foods are a little more difficult to digest. You have more digestive power in the spring versus the winter. And so it all like
Yeah.
ties together and makes so much sense, but it is complicated in the sense that there's no like quick, easy, fast answer of
No.
like, oh, you just eat this one thing all the time and then you'll be super healthy and it's all good. you
I
know?
wish it was that easy. Exactly.
Yes. And I
Yeah, and
think that's the beauty of diversity and seasonality, as you were saying.
yeah, I was also going to say that, like, where you are versus, let's just say, someone in Italy versus Japan, like, there's completely different terroirs. And, I think this goes very much in line with what you all do. It's like, whatever is most seasonal is going to be most nutritious in what's local to you that hasn't traveled a huge distance as well goes into it. All these different things is like if you really tap into what you want and you look at what's around you, it's all going to be right there. So, and you can't, this, it's beautiful because those things change throughout the seasons, and it's perfect for your body. So if you just listen to those things, you're going to be in tune, with the season and your body all at the same time. And it actually becomes relatively easy. It does take a period of getting used to, and like you said, kind of prompting this question, it's like it is really first kind of tuning out the noise to just
Hmm.
really trust, yourself and your gut.
Yeah, yeah. And that's sometimes the ultra processed foods and like highly processed foods can trick our minds into believing that we want more of them. And so,
Totally.
again, with like clearing the muddy waters, like sometimes it is
Yeah.
getting those getting rid of those things for a bit so that you can actually
Yes,
tune into like what your body needs and not be
most definitely.
constantly in that cycle of it those foods kind of tricking you into wanting more and more.
Yes, it's actually a huge, that's part of this Eden method is actually educating
Hmm.
people, if they don't already know, that yes, I mean, these huge food companies have done a really good job of making these foods pretty addictive. And so if we don't know that off the bat, we'll just continue being addicted to them.
Yeah.
So yeah, first clearing those out is definitely a vital step.
Yeah. So I want to talk more about the eat-in method and how, like, basically your relationship with food improves your health. Can you
Yeah.
dive more into, like, explaining the eat-in method a little bit and exploring more of that relationship piece?
Yeah, most definitely. So the eat-in method has 7 different components. So we first clear and organize our kitchens because it's really about creating a space that we want to be in. Like you said, cooking has become we've become such a convenient, culture of convenience, right? We
Mm-hmm.
want something in a moment. We want takeout, Grubhub, etc. And we think like we don't even have time for cooking, right? That feels like a chore. And yet this is really a mindset shift to understanding the power and the empowerment of actually cooking for yourself and how that feels. And once we actually make time for that, once we make that a priority, how much better we feel, not only, in our physical bodies, but like we were saying before, that sense of accomplishment, that mindset, that mental state is also boosted as well. So we first clear and organize our kitchens. This is kind of, coming from my chef background, to make it an organized space, to make it a place that is easy to be in, that feels, comforting and approachable and welcoming and inviting, and also sets us up so it's actually easy to cook in, right? Because if you have, all of your things kind of disorganized in your kitchen, and you have pots and pans above the stove and they're heavy, and you kind of take 10 minutes to get them down before you cook every time, that adds up. You're going to be
Yeah.
kind of not wanting to be there. So we first really optimize our kitchen so that we want to spend time there. And then the third component is building. And that's really what we've been talking about in terms of building our personal pantry, which first really dives into understanding ourselves and our own food sensitivities, if we have any intolerances, etc. And then building a pantry that really is nutrient dense. So that also involves kind of clearing that processed food, like we said. And then we dive into the simple act of planning. I think we often forget to plan, but if we
Yeah.
take those 10, 5, whatever minutes, to really set ourselves up for success, so we always have those healthy meals on hand, our lives are kind of transformed. So then we move, after we plan, we shop, and we learn how to shop, with places. We find places such as Farmer Jones, and really high quality produce. And obviously, if we're eating meat and etc., like really looking beyond the nutrition as well. And also, how are the places that we're purchasing from, how are they actually restoring our land and contributing to like a better planet?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then also cooking, right? If we have this really beautiful set of ingredients to work with, we have a space that we want to be in, we have our meals planned out, and the time in which we're making those meals planned out, and we feel like, okay, we're not stressed, we can be here.
Yeah.
Then cooking kind of becomes like a therapeutic act, right? It's something that we can look forward to. And once again, eating is really a time, to pause in our day, time for stillness, time where we can connect with ourselves, others, the planet, right? We can look at a plate of food. If we can actually um, be in that restful place, we can really share gratitude for everything that's on our plate, and really kind of feel actually that relationship with the land and the farmer who cultivated the food and the chef who put it together, which might be ourselves.
Yeah.
And then it also becomes a place for socializing, right? For spending time with our loved ones, which, I think, we've become so good at connecting digitally, and we've kind of almost not forgot, but we've put, connecting physically like lower on the priority totem pole. And
Mm-hmm.
so if we can kind of boost that, bring it back up to the top of our priorities, like it's amazing how much better we feel. I found that in my journey. I didn't have this mindful eating component, before. I don't know what actually triggered that, to be honest, but I found, I was eating the cleanest I had ever eaten, right? I was on that FODMAP and there was just something missing, right? And so it's that real need and desire to bring like friends together around the table that was so vital and important for me. So that's kind of an outlook of it.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's a beautiful method. And it actually perfectly leads into my next question because you mentioned studying in Italy and that connection and the culture there. And, I think you share that there was like a newfound respect for the food with everyone you care for. Can you tell me about how the culture and the connection became really important to you in that eating experience and how you brought that home too?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm still trying to figure out how to bring that back because
Yeah,
it's just
right.
such a different culture. Um, yeah, but I think there are many things that really stood out. I mean, number one is that mealtime was like top of the priority list. It was like, hey, we have like 3 hours for dinner tonight, and you better be there. There's nothing else planned. Like you're not bringing your phone. This
Yeah.
is this is a time. This is the highlight of our day every day, and it kind of is the same thing, but it's still in the sense of the people who show up, our family, our friends, and the place where it is our home. And it's probably not the most extravagant meal, but it's high quality ingredients from where people that we know. We go to the they went to the market every day to buy their food, and they knew the person who was selling the eggs. They knew the butcher, they knew the farmer. And even those small interactions in the morning were this sense of community. And for me, it was kind of the first time that when we were eating at the end of the day, it was like I actually knew where the things in our plate were from. And that connection started to build in my mind and that gratitude. And then there's even this more like, oh, I'm looking forward to even the morning to going to the market to support those people and to have
Yeah.
that connection, right? And then all of a sudden you realize that your table is also growing because you invite those people to dinner, right? So there's this just real true sense of community with food. And it was, I really wanted to study in France. I thought, because I was all about flavor. So I thought, the best chefs go to France to study. And I'm really grateful that I went to Italy because it was about the most beautiful ingredients and selecting those and really treating them with respect and really simplicity and bringing them to life in a way that was just it was relatively simple but so incredibly delicious. You could just have that perfectly ripe tomato with beautiful olive oil that was harvested, the farm over. You can taste the land, and it's incredible. And so, when I got back to the States, I was like, holy crap, I don't even know what I just experienced. I was like, I
Yeah.
was longing for those nights and those moments. And so I was still in college. So I tried to recreate that with my roommates, which was really interesting. Most of them had no idea what I was talking about, in the sense of, wanting to sit for dinner. They just wanted to go to Chipotle. Um, so then I think this is really why I started the company NonnaEats, bringing all these chefs really went into other people's homes to recreate those small intimate dinner parties to bring that sense of like celebration and respect to the table in someone's home. And it still felt a little, still not quite there just because it was for those people a celebratory moment. It was a surprise birthday parties. It was an anniversary. It was a holiday, which is beautiful, you know. But it was like I still wanted to help and inspire this on a day to day occasion
Yeah.
because that's where it gets interesting. So
Right.
that's kind of where this method kind of comes in play.
Oh, I love it. So tell me more about Nona Eats. I love your company, first of all, and I think it's
Oh, thank
amazing.
you.
And I think it's awesome that you're working with chefs and letting them do what they do as well and
Yeah.
like work in that intimate environment. But I'd love for you to tell our audience more about your company and kind of all of the amazing work that you're doing.
Thank you. Yeah, it's yeah, we work with all types of chefs, which is
Hmm.
cool. And so from my experience working in the food industry, I saw all these chefs and I specifically was actually dating someone. So it was very personal in the sense that he loved to cook, And over the couple of years of him being in a kitchen and being a, professional chef, like his love of cooking just went down
Mm-hmm.
because it is, I mean, if no one really, understands the food industry, it's like, it's such a grind. It's really taxing on your body. It's smelly, it's hot, right? It's long hours, it's, typically little pay, right? So it's very depleting. And actually, at the end of the day, many of those people like kind of eat, or what from what I saw, right? Like they're even eat more convenience food because they don't have the time to eat. And so it was like, oh my gosh, like what can we do to inspire them? Because they deserve to, like, they're amazing chefs and they have amazing cuisine, right? And it's all unique, which is awesome too. And that's what I'm excited about, is to get to know these people and get to know what they love, and how can we bring that into my home. So that was kind of, part of the inspiration. And so what we do is really, work with these chefs to really hone into their authentic cuisine, which can also be kind of hard sometimes, given, there's trends in the food industry too, the farm to table movement, all these things that chefs kind of follow other people and what they're doing, rather they don't even sometimes know what's authentic to them. If it's tacos, they might feel like that's not fancy enough, but we really work with them to highlight, whether it's tacos or it is some, crazy elegant thing, right? Because there's always diners looking for something unique. There's always an occasion that calls for tacos.
Right.
So yeah, and then so we really work with the chefs to kind of empower their authentic cuisine, and then, find the clients that match perfectly with them as well. And then yeah, bring the chefs in their home and create a really beautiful meal. And it's also interesting to see that connection, the I think the diners, when they welcome the chef in their home and they see the chef cooking in their kitchen, they get a whole new perspective of cooking high quality food, but also their kitchen. They see, oh, okay, this was done here. Like I might not have those skills yet, but like that there's a little bit of a, progression there, in the sense of like I can do this. And then there's also, the chef is serving the diner, and so that feels like a very intimate moment as well. That connection, once again, with the food
Mm-hmm.
and the gratitude, that might not be stated out loud, but there is this feeling of like being taken care of, like a mom. That's why we call it Nona Eats, like grandma food, right? Because the chef is kind of serving like that, or acting like the mom or the grandma, kind of really creating a nourishing place of care and well-being in their own homes.
Yeah, and I love that term nourishment. It's something that's really rang true for me for a while. And I think nourishment is different than just feeding yourself. And so,
Yes.
can you speak to that a little bit, like more of what makes an experience nourishing?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I don't know if I've ever actually said this out loud, so we'll see. But I think like, food can be fuel, and food is
Hmm.
fuel for a lot of people. Like I just need a chicken breast and some broccoli, and I'm just going to eat it in 10 minutes. That's that could be fuel for some people, right? And then there's another nourishment. You like when I feel nourished, it's it's this appreciation of what's on my plate. And there's a feeling of like I can actually, like, my shoulders drop and I can feel at ease. I'm not stressed, I'm not rushed. I feel at home with myself, with my surroundings. And I think, back to like digestion, like that's really important for how we digest our food and optimal nutrition. So I think it all kind of goes hand in hand, which is cool. When I feel the most nourished, I'm probably getting the most nourishment.
Yes,
but
I
I
totally agree.
yeah, but I also think, this, like I said, I haven't really thought of this prior to you asking, but I think for me at least, nourishment comes really with mindful eating. really when I take the time to be present, like when I let my shoulders drop, when I can see who I'm with, right? When I can engage in conversation or just listen to conversation even. But and also in that state, it's slower and it takes more time and I'm full with less, right? Because I eat slower and my belly gets full before I know it. And all of a sudden I realize like it's not just the food that's nourishing me. It's this sense of ease. It's this sense of community. And even if I'm eating by myself, I can feel that if I know what's on my plate or where it came from. And the or even just having gratitude for the day, that feels nourishing to me. And or if I took the time to cook it, that sense of accomplishment feels nourishing to me. So I guess to answer your questions, like to me, food as fuel just feels like um, it feels like I'm in a video game like Mario Kart or something, and I get one of those tokens, and like I have a power up. I'm done. But nourishment is like felt on like every bone of our bodies, and it's hard, I guess, for me to even put it into words. So hopefully,
Yeah.
I described it a little bit.
Oh, I think you described it perfectly. And I agree with you. I think it's really more than physical, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like that emotional, spiritual connection as well, and the appreciation
Yes.
and the gratitude. And I think eating in a state of like coherence where the mind and the heart are involved and kind of
Yes.
on the same wave, and you're in that more
Totally.
parasympathetic state, you're
Yes.
able to actually digest and nourish your cells. Because if you're eating in a sympathetic state where you're like, just rush, fight, or flight, even though you might
Right.
be eating the most beautiful food in the world, that's going to digest so differently than
Yes.
food that is eaten with great company and you're happy and you're feeling love and feeling appreciation. Like that is very different in your body.
Yes, totally. And that's what I, you know, share with our clients. It's like you can have the same plate of food, and if you're in a stressful state when you're eating it, you're actually kind of like you're eating more stress. You're
Mm-hmm.
intensifying that stress. Whereas if you can get yourself to more of a mindful, state of presence, then you can actually digest the food and feel that nourishment, which is, yeah, it is hard to put into words, but it's an incredible feeling.
Yes. Yeah. A note from our sponsor.
Farming for Health is brought to you by Farmer Jones Farm at the Chef's Garden. Farmer Jones Farm provides nutritious, regeneratively grown vegetables to home cooks nationwide. If you are searching for vegetables grown in a way that's healthy for you and good for the planet, try a curated box from Farmer Jones Farm. Get 15% off your order with the code FarmingForHealth15.
So, how do you stay inspired? I know you talked about kind of chefs losing their inspiration sometimes. How do you
Yeah,
personally stay inspired?
totally. That's such a good question. I think I'm just always in a state of curiosity and exploration. And, ingredients inspire me, landscapes inspire me, like random stuff all the time will inspire me. Sometimes I'll take a photo of it, sometimes it'll just be a mental photo. I love to research, which is kind of funny. And so, like for example, I'm not going to remember the name of this, and if I do say the name, I'd probably butcher it. But there's something in Japan during persimmon season where they hang the persimmons and then they actually kind of massage them for a couple of weeks lightly until they get preserved in this really beautiful way. So they kind of turn into like a sugary, not dried persimmon, right? But like a little bit more plump, sugary, beautiful. I guess it is dried, but but it has a little bit more moisture, I guess. So I saw some photo of that, these persimmons hanging. And so now all I want to do is try that for myself. And I live in Colorado and there's no persimmons around and it makes no sense. But there's even this feeling of like wanting to try that technique with other fruit. So it's like, can I do that with plums because those are more local? Like, I don't know. So I kind of always have this weird, you know, sense of curiosity that I apply no matter where I am. And I also, being a designer, I think, we really focus on design thinking, which is kind of like it's all about solving problems within restraints or constraints, sorry.
Mhm.
And so I also really love constraints, like being in the ski um, lodge, right? We don't have as much food here. I don't have my normal pantry. Like, there's really not much to work with. And I actually kind of love the curiosity, the exploration of trying to put something together. And it's beautiful how sometimes it's the most like it's three ingredients and it's still exactly what I wanted. I love how it works out. So
Yeah.
it's yeah, I guess to me it's just all about staying curious.
Yeah. And with that in mind, tell me something you're eating right now at home that you love, like a simple dish that's maybe seasonal or it's pretty vegetable forward.
Yeah, totally. Well, can I just tell you something that I did last week with your
Yeah,
vegetables?
absolutely. That would be
'Cause
great.
that was right. Um, yeah, you all sent me some really beautiful seasonal veggies, so mainly roots at this time of year.
Yep.
And I did a little challenge with myself, like what can I make something that's edible in 20 minutes or less? And so I put together parsnips, beef, and then the carrots and some of your beautiful microgreens. But I put some of your carrot marmalade with the carrots, and then I put some garam masala sauteed with the beets and the parsnips. So there's kind of like this earthiness to those and this sweetness from the carrots and the carrot marmalade. And then I kind of plated those all together. So the plate was just the most beautiful thing. Those reds and oranges and whites, and then topped with the microgreens and your edible flowers. It was like the most beautiful thing. So
Oh, that
even
sounds
before
so good.
I was like nourished before I ate it. Right? I didn't even need to eat it. It was so pretty.
I
But
know
I
that's
think,
like the eating with your eyes, right?
yes,
Like,
exactly. Yeah. And
yes.
yeah, I think that's actually at this time of year, that's one of my favorite things to do is just like is mainly root veggies with
Mhm.
different simple seasonings or herbs or something like that, kind of sauteed. And sometimes I'll just eat them, on a salad or eat them straight up or put them in a broth for soup. Or even like I have these almond tortillas, I put some of those, put it all in there, and it's beautiful any meal.
Yum. That sounds so
Yeah.
good. I love that. So let's mention your book too. You wrote a book, Eating In by Design, the essential guidebook to redesigning personal and planetary health from home. And I love the full description. So when you talk about redesigning personal and planetary health from home,
Yeah.
can we dive into that a little bit?
Yeah, totally. I think the planetary aspect can get like overshadowed. Like we talked about this a little bit in the sense of like health and nutrition. If we're really focused on optimizing our own gut and how we're feeling day to day, like it's hard to even think about the planet and how our
Mm-hmm.
purchases are actually affecting, our climate. But it actually has a very big impact because like a third of our food is wasted. The big industrial ag, right, is if you actually look into what that's doing to our soil and to our land and monoculture, it's pretty devastating to be honest. So yeah, and I think it's like a what is it, like a fourth of our global greenhouse gas emissions are from the food and ag industry.
Mm-hmm.
There's like a huge amount. So if we cut down, if we actually, I think there's another thing, right? Like when we look at climate change and global warming, right? Like what's going on? It's like we can feel really small and helpless. We're like, this is huge. Like, how do we stop a natural disaster? Like, do I even have any effect on this? Like, do I need to buy a new car? Like, what do I do?
Right.
But you can actually look at your food purchase decisions and make a difference. Kind of like what we were saying with the cooking too. You can feel the sense of empowerment if you're choosing a biodegradable packaging over plastic. You can make really small conscious choices um, simply by what you're shopping every single week. And the coolest part of that as well is like if you're reducing, a lot of us over purchase when it comes to food. We look at the sales and the discounts and all these things, and we're like, okay, we need all these things, and then we end up wasting our food. And so I forget the number right now, but it's something like you can save an easy $1,500 a year with just reducing your food waste, which is incredible. So it all kind of goes hand in hand in the sense that if we start to kind of make conscious decisions, that we start to understand how our purchases are affecting our land and how that is therefore affecting us. Because now we live in this world where natural disasters are unfortunately pretty regular. Mm-hmm. So if we can actually kind of make that connection, like, all right, I'm gonna make a change here. Even if I just buy more fruits and veggies, you're already reducing a ton of packaging, which is incredible. And just one tip, you never have to use those plastic grocery bags. Those are not needed. But small things like that really do make a difference. Even here in Colorado, we have a state tax on bags. So like if we go to the grocery store and they bag our food, I think it's like 10 cents for every bag that we're charged. And so it's this incentive to bring your bag. And for me, it's like all of a sudden you're just trained to bring your bag. And even if I go, wherever I go within the States or wherever I go grocery shopping, like I never use one of their bags. And those bags add up. So even a small action like that, once we start, getting to a place where we're conscious of those things, we can actually really feel empowered in our own choices and make a difference.
Yes, I love that. Oh my gosh. I think that's so true, and it's something we talk about here a lot as well. Like how can every choice you make creates a ripple, right? And so even the smallest changes can have such a big impact.
Totally.
So our podcast is called Farming for Health. When I say that, what does farming for health mean to you?
I would say that it means, well, there's kind of a lot of things. I was lucky enough to have Farmer Jones on my podcast, and he was this wealth of knowledge when it came to seasonal food and the nutrient density of seasonal food. And so that's something that we practice and teach in our Eden method. Just really looking at where is your food coming from, and if you try, is that really high quality land? Are they how are they treating the soil? Are there nutrients in that soil? Because if not, then there's not many nutrients in your food. And is how long ago was it picked? Because the nutrient density will drop after it's picked. So when you say that, I guess my first thought goes to really, number one, farming in a way that is sustainable, regenerative, for our land, and therefore for the veggies, and therefore for our health.
Yes.
I don't know. Is that right?
Yeah. No, there's no right answer. It's an open-ended question. You can't be wrong. Everyone interprets it differently, but I think that's beautiful. And, I think when we talk about farming for health, there's so many different aspects to it. Just like mindful eating or intuitive eating, it's going to hit differently for different people. So
yes. Yeah, totally.
So are there any last thoughts you want to leave our listeners with today?
I think the main thing is I know that like a fourth, it's almost a third of our population doesn't even know how to cook. And there's also obviously a larger percentage that just doesn't cook. Mm-hmm. And my last note, I guess you would say, right, is just one of inspiration, of curiosity. Can you spark that, inner child, I guess you would say, right, to find a love of cooking, to just try it. and to not look at it like you need to be a celebrity chef. Just go in and have fun and play with your food. And there's no contest or judges. Like just starting to once again build that relationship and maybe find some joy, some self-care within those acts, and see how it might transform your day-to-day.
That's beautiful. And where can our listeners connect with you online?
Yeah, I have a website. Well, we have two websites. The Eat In method, you can find that at calliecavanaugh.com, and NonnaEats is NonnaEats.com. We have social media accounts linked with both of those, and starting to produce some YouTube videos. Those are all under Eat In, but we're also going to be coming out with like a live cooking series, so people can participate in this 20-minute challenge in community in their own kitchens virtually. So they can, you don't have to cook alone. You can find play in the kitchen with some other people. I know, like we were saying, it can feel like a chore. So this is really an opportunity to have some fun, maybe win a prize if you're a winner, and if not, just enjoy the ride. So that's also on Eventbrite. But yeah, please reach out if you have questions.
That sounds so much fun. Oh my gosh. I think cooking in community is great. And it's just a nice way to like feel connected with other people. And connection is something we're all missing so much. At least I think the majority of us. And so
yes.
I think that's amazing. And the work you're doing is amazing. And definitely check out both of your websites. I think they're fantastic. So thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast today.
Thank you so much, Amy. It was such a pleasure, and I'm so grateful to connect with you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to Farming for Health. We hope that you enjoyed this episode. Connect with Farmer Lee Jones and I on Instagram and Facebook.